Today on Gamers Couch.
Isle of Skye.
Hello. For the intro. I can't even keep it up. We're trying to have the worst Sean Connery impressions here and there, just in honor of the honorable Scott.
The problem for me is occasionally I'm watching some YouTube videos from another guy who's doing Kerbal Space Program, because, who is Scottish and goes by the name Scott Manley. So whenever he starts his video, so hello, Scott Manley here, and so we could try hello. Isle of Skye here.
No, he's not Sean Connery. I don't want to insult the Scots.
I'm pretty sure we are past that point and lost viewership in Scotland by
No, the point is we know that we have the worst impressions ever of Scottish accent. I mean, I know a few words just because of being in the Outlander universe and working with that there. So I learned a few words, but that doesn't mean that I do either know how to really nicely pronounce Scottish names and words or stuff. But I can make the worst Sean Connery impression ever.
Yeah,
I can do that. I'm really good.
Who really does know how to pronounce Scottish?
Scots. Yeah. There's a guy on Twitter.
Maybe.
He's called Alistair. You can look him up at Paper Bullet, and he's a real Scot, and he does really cool stuff. And he sometimes, occasionally, throws in the Scottish poem or something, and it's really, really nice to listen to. So. He knows how to do it. Anyway.
Talking about things that are not as nice to listen to, it's us. And we are back with another game to talk about.
We should have had whiskey for this.
Who says I didn't?
We don't have any whiskey for one, and
keep up the illusion for the viewership.
It's before 4 p.m. that we record this, so no whiskey. No. Anyway,
What do you mean? There's a time where there's no
alcohol before 4 p.m.
But there's 4 p.m. somewhere.
Yeah, but not here. Abide by my rules. Anyway, we're talking Isle of Skye today. Isle of Skye, which is the last of the nominees for Kennerspiel des Jahres. We talked about Pandemic Legacy and Time Stories already in the iCards throughout the video. They will pop up in case you're interested in our recordings for those. Don't distract me. Recordings for those games. I could really, I don't know. Anyway, we're talking about the last of the nominees, and we go about it as usual. Rules and gameplay first, then likes and dislikes, and then a few funny stories or experiences that we had while playing that game. And I try to make the worst Scottish impressions for each section, so... Honey, rules, and gameplay. And it's super bad. I know. Now he has to try not to vomit and then tell you all about the game.
Well,
challenge accepted.
Who wants to live forever?
Well, not with me. You don't want.
See, that's what I have to work with. It's either
that's what you have to live with.
Either that she does not get the Highlander
I did
pun.
get it.
I totally know what you're talking about.
It's the song for the Highlander movie, and it was super popular, and I really like it. But still, I like to destroy your puns.
Time for
Isle of Skye.
MacLeod.
We're not sure.
MacLeod.
Actually, this is something that I want to know. So, how do you pronounce it? Is it MacLeod or MacLeod? Because there's other words in the Scottish world that just don't have the D.
That have different letters and sound differently. But she kept on wondering.
No, is there a difference depending on what letter follows the EO in a word? If you, let's say, how do you pronounce it? Is there a difference? Is there a rule? Let me know. I want to know.
What's the rules and gameplay of the Scottish language?
Yeah, that too. I'm really curious. So if you happen to know, let me know.
I hope you're still with us. Let's talk about Isle of Skye. I'm
going to shut up now.
If I had to come up with a shorthand for Isle of Skye, I could probably do pretty well by saying it has elements from Carcassonne and has something similar to the auction mechanism as in Castles of Mad King Ludwig, and has a little bit of tile drawing as seen in Roll for the Galaxy, all games we already talked about, but that is, I think, a pretty accurate description of how this game works. You are one of these fine lords or lairds in Lairds, whatever.
It's a clan.
In the clan in the Scottish Highlands.
Yeah. Isle of Skye is on the north part
on the Isle of Skye. So you are either the yellow MacLeods or the white McInnes or the blue Burger Kings or McDonald's or the green Isle of Skye. No, well, the greyish Isle of Skye. I think this is just a replacement thing. So if you ever lose one of the families in one of the great Scottish wars, the clan wars, the Nikale, which sounds weird because in German Nikale is or Kniekele is like the inside of your whatever, and the McKinnons.
It's the back part of your knee. I'm sorry, Kurt.
So
go on.
This game has, each round works very similar comes with a very good structure to that. You'll have one main board in the center of the game with two different sides depending on the number of players. So this is for 5 and this is for 2 to 4 players. Let's stick with this one because this is a little simpler. When you set up the game, these 4 windows will be filled up with these little token window, whatever things.
Shutters.
Which essentially determine how you get victory points each game. There's a whole bunch of them, so each game plays out a little differently because different things will be counted for in terms of victory points. Speaking of victory points, you can keep track of them on the track around this thing. And down here are the rounds you're playing. So effectively, you will always play 6 rounds with 2 to 4 players, and I think 5 rounds, yes, with 5 players because everybody is a little bit slower and it takes a little bit longer. Now, the interesting part about the scoring track is when I said up here you have victory points, the scoring track actually tells you for each round which of these victory point conditions is active for each round. So in round 1, only the thing on A is active. In round, let's say 4, it's B and D. So effectively all of these come in, I think, 3 times, but in different combinations and similar on the other side. Now, what happens is you start the game usually with your little castle or your keep or however you want to call this, and it's probably really difficult to see, which already incorporates pretty much a lot of the tile stuff you encounter in this game. There are basically just 3 different types of terrain. You have mountains on this side, you have water on this side, and then you have meadows, I think they're called. Grassland, whatever, where you send the cows to, not the animals, to graze and then, whatever. You know how cows work. I don't have to make this a biology lesson. So, as the gamer eye might have spotted immediately, this tile already says 5 gold coins. So each turn actually starts with how much money you get. And you always get 5 coins from your base tile, and other tiles may give you additional coins. If you're already in round 3 or later, you also get coins for the amount of players that are ahead of you. So this is our tiny little catch-up mechanic that gives you a little bit more money if you should be behind. After that, you will draw 3 tiles from the bagpipe of gaming mystery. And yes, there's a lot in here. Well, there was a lot in here. Now there's a lot on the floor. So a lot of different tiles on here that where you will draw 3 of them and place them in front of your little, well, what they're called, screen. So that everybody can see that, but you still have some time to put stuff behind here. So your screen is not just your name. You actually build this to look like this, and it'll be in front of you with our little tiles, 3 in front of this thing here. Now, afterwards, you get to put stuff behind your screen. For one, it's the Hatchet of Doom. The hatchet means that the tile that this is behind will be discarded immediately after the reveal phase. As for the other 2 tiles, you put money behind that. And there's a variety of coins, and since you start with 5, so you have 5 coins at the beginning of the game, you have to put down 1 coin behind each tile that does not have the Hatchet of Doom behind it. And that kind of determines the price you're asking for that tile, because after everybody has settled down and put their money behind the tiles and the Hatchet of Doom behind the tiles, you reveal the screen. And beginning with the start player, each player may buy 1 tile from another player, just 1. And they can decide which tile to buy. The player, or he then pays the amount of money to the player he buys that tile from, and that player not only gets the money from the selecting player, but he also gets the money he put behind that tile by himself, which becomes important in a moment. So let's say we have a 3-player game. Sarah is the starting player. I have 2 tiles out because 1 went straight back to the bag after the Hatchet of Doom has been determined.
I'm the starting player. I have the handsome Scotsman in my hand.
And then Sarah can decide to buy 1 of my tiles, or if we have a 3rd or more players, 1 of their tiles. Let's say I have this tile out here and put 2 coins behind that. That means she has to pay me 2 coins, which effectively results in me getting 4 coins. The 2 coins I placed behind the tile plus her 2. Now, for every tile that was not sold, you have to discard the money you put behind that. That goes back into the bank. But the good news is you get to keep the tile. So you can think of that as buying it from the bank by yourself and trying to get some of the tiles. Or, well, just make it really, really expensive to get more money from other players and amass your riches. In any regard, after all that buying stuff has been done, you end up usually with more or 1 or more tiles. Sometimes you don't have any tiles if both of your tiles got bought by other players, but then you can swim in a pile of money like Scrooge McDuck, another Scotsman that would be great at this game. And whoever has a tile now gets to decide where to put it on. There's really just very minimal rules when it comes to putting down tiles. That is, if you put it down, the terrain has to match on the sides. So in this case, this would work because I have 2 mountains here. This wouldn't work because meadow and mountain do not go well with each other. Another thing that would work is this. So you can place, you don't have to continue streets or roads as long as the terrain is matching with that. So why do you need roads? Well, some of the tiles have these little whiskey barrels on them with a coin. In order to get that coin at the beginning of each round, you have to connect it to your castle through a street. And of course, the terrain still has to match there. So you want to keep the streets ongoing just to be able to add more money to yourself. Well, kind of each round. but you're not required to do that. And that may become apparent once we take a look at those scoring tiles or how to score the game. After that is done, you simply check if it's the end of the game. And if not, you just keep on going doing that. So again, you get money depending on how much money you have on your tiles. Then you get maybe a bonus if other players are ahead of you. Draw 3 tiles, put them in front of your screen, put Hatchet of Doom behind that, and some money as you can allot, as long as it's at least 1 coin per tile. And then the buying, selling phase goes on. For the next turn, you just pass the doodlezuck of first playing. What?
I was not expecting you talking German instead of saying bagpipe, which is another German lesson of the day, is actually a Dudelsack in German, but I think Dudelsack sounds way cooler.
And yes, doodle is a word that is more has more phonetic meaning in German. So you could say, yeah, someone was doodling around, which means he was like whistling something or making some kind of melody. It's yeah. There's probably also a word to describe that kind of word, and I don't know it. So the Dudelsack will determine who is the next starting player, which is obviously important for the buying phase, so that each one gets a chance to have first pick at whatever tiles are out there. Now, after you have managed to go through all the rounds and scored, obviously at the end of each round you score whatever is down here in regards to the scoring tiles, and at the very end of the game you also get a victory point per 5 coins that you have, and you score some special tiles that we are going to have a look at. One of these would be this. So you get 1 victory point per 2 sheep at the table. Well, no, not quite. You'd get 1 point per 2 sheep on your own island territory. Otherwise, I would just end up with half a point. Yes, please. Similar to that, you might have this, which gives you a victory point per 2 barrel. What?
If you say sheep at the table, and you made me at this thumbnail being the sheep on the cover of the box, I'm being slightly pissed off by your choice of words and how you probably reasoned this is not.
Well, who wants to live forever?
Cthulhu.
So these tiles have a lot of different little icons on them. As you can see here, there's a light tower.
Lighthouse.
A lighthouse, yes. Here we have a cow. It's a cow.
I thought next to the scroll. No. Yeah, it's a...
We have a couple of ships, and these don't do much by themselves, but they're usually referenced either by these extra scoring tiles, which make them more valuable to you and, make those tiles more desirable to pick up during the buy phase. Or they may be referenced by these tiles, which give you the majority of scoring points. So let's take a look at those. So you have tiles like these that are more territory related. So in this case, you get 2 victory points for the largest enclosed body of water that you have. And enclosed means there has to be other territory types around that water, so it's closed off. And then you would get 2 victory points per tile that is part of that body of water. So in this example, that would be 8 victory points. Then you have tiles like these that reference the little icons on the other tiles. So this says, he who has the most chips gets 5 victory points, and he who comes in second gets 2. And that's it. Sometimes you have things like these that just care about that an area is enclosed, but not necessarily how big it is. So this gets you 1 victory point per entirely enclosed area, regardless of the type of terrain or its size. Then you have something like this. Sheep give you 1 victory point. He who has the most money gets 5 victory points. Second place gets 2. And so on and so on. So I think you get the picture. So these all reference different kinds of constellations that you might have. And as I said, there's a whole bunch of them. So you have to play a couple of rounds to actually see all of them and play with them, but also keeps the game fresh because the victory conditions are different. It'll randomize a little bit what kind of tiles are good this game versus maybe next game or last game. And that's it. One final thing. If you manage to have one of these tiles and have that area that it is on entirely enclosed, so I actually would have to have 3 more mountainsides around here that are kind of closing this off, I get twice the points for whatever this gives. So I would essentially get 1 point per whiskey barrel effectively at the end of the game. Or what else do we have here? I would get 2 points per lighthouse with this thing, and so on and so on. And that's pretty much the game. So you kind of evaluate who has the most victory points at the end of the game, and he who has the most is the King of Scotland, I guess. It says, the game boss says, from chieftain to king, which we don't have that problem. We're always kings.
Nicely said, but I could chip in some Scottish history now, which I'm not going to do. I'm just saying the 45.
If you weren't aware, our last name translates to king, so that's why I can, with confidence, say throw the components on the floor to see how durable they are.
I'm just checking. This game is for 8 years and up, and it says a round takes about 60 minutes, and I think that's quite correct, at least if you have more than 2 players that are not us. I'd say 60 minutes is reasonable.
Yeah, I would say the game with 2 is different a little bit, although there's no specific variant, but a game with 2 plays differently than a game with more players, because it's obviously more tactical. Your amount of choices where you can select what you want to buy is reduced. The good thing is, and it ties into the time thing, everybody does everything almost at the same time. The only thing where it goes in sequence is the round where you buy stuff off. But everybody draws 3 tiles from the back. Well, maybe not immediately, but you get the idea. You draw 3 tiles, and then everybody for themselves can decide how to rate those with money and where the Hatchet of Doom goes. And then the buy phase is the only thing that goes sequential. But obviously you have to, it makes sense to go sequentially per player and determine the scores and all that stuff. Yeah. Unless you have a group that takes care of that by themselves, then you actually might speed that entire process up when they just say how many victory points they have.
How was the manual? That's the last thing I want to ask before hopping into the next section.
The manual is not only thin, which for a Kennerspiel, this is almost surprisingly thin. And considering that there's also reference on here on the back for that stuff, it was really easy to understand. And as I said, since this has some similarities to other games, this was quite easy to pick up. But I wouldn't be worried if you haven't played all those other games. This is really well in its description, at least the German version.
Okay. So let's hop into the next section, likes and dislikes. That was way better than the other one. So I want to start.
What does the dish like?
Food. So yeah, this game has a very special place in my heart because it steps away from a lot of themes that could have been plastered on, and it has a very sweet theme that, well, I take a liking to, meaning Scotland and the Isle of Skye. For all of you who don't see my vlogs, you might now not be surprised anymore that for many years, like 20 years, I've been part of the Outlander loving community, and of course Scotland again has a very special place in my heart. And so this game was like, oh, this is I like this theme. Usually you have like medieval Europe themes on tile laying game if there is like a specific territory thing going on, or you have something that has nothing to do with real history or real geography that is going on. So I was just very happy with the theme they used for this particular game. Also, it's what I liked is this was a very easy game to learn and to play. I would have almost seen it in the Spiel des Jahres category, not so much the Kennerspiel, but it has a lot of things that reminded me of Kuruba, which we played the week before. But there's definitely a lot of difference with the strategies and the tactical stuff, where to buy, what to focus on your Isle of Skye building. That's definitely puts the game into the Kennerspiel section for me. So what I liked while we played is that this game, though being a very quiet game again, is more communicating, or there's a lot more communication going on at the table as there is with the other silent games.
You have certainly more interaction because you're buying off stuff of other players.
And you might do the cursing, I wanted the tile, something like this, so there's at least some communication going on. I would say for 50% of the time that you play, it's very quiet though. It's very silent, where you try to figure out which tile to discard, what money amount to put behind the tiles to prize them for the other players. That stuff is very silent. Or where to place tiles on your island, that's very silent. But the buying phase, the midsection phase is very communicative, and I like that. This was like, cool. That's different than the other games that we have in this regard, like Carcassonne or Kuruba, that are the most recent tile-laying games there. So I liked that this was different. Also, the artwork is super cute. It's nothing super fancy though. But it is cute. I like the sheep and the cows a lot. They're very cutesy. One thing that I'm not sure yet if I am correct with my thought, and then going further if I like it or not. So the 2-player game plays very different from a 3-player game. We played those two variants, and we haven't played with 4 or 5, so I cannot really say if those types of games play more like the 3-player or the 2-player. I would assume they play more like the 3-player. And honestly, I liked the 2-player game way better, for the reason that your opponent always buys at least one tile off of you. So the whole section of maybe not having bought a tile from you, or you not being able to buy anything from other players is not there in a 2-player game. It feels very different and played pretty much very different. And I liked that a bit more for the games that we played. I'm not sure if I'm correct with my assumption that the 4 and 5-player games play just like the 3-player game. It could also be that a 4-player game would play different because you have an even number of players, and then going against one player would probably not work as easily as it does with 3 players. So I was not sure, but so far from the games that we played, I liked the 2-player game better.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far to call that a variant, but the point that going with 3 players or more, that the chance that you end up with no tiles at the end is pretty high, at least no tiles in front of you anymore. And then if you don't have the money to buy other tiles, or if you're last and the other tiles that are available are crap, or, well, not necessarily crap, but sometimes
not beneficial, let's put it this way.
Sometimes the money you would have to pay for them does not equal up to the amount of points that you might get for the money instead of getting the tiles. Maybe we just had a weird game that when we played that, but I would say that I can see this becoming less of a, well, I would assume that it becomes less of a problem with 4 or 5 players. Still, if you have 2 tiles in front of you that are both really good, you probably will lose them. But with more than 3 players, chances are there's at least 1 tile left when it's your turn. That is still all right. And mind you, other players may just buy 1 tile from another player, so you cannot buy as many as you want. But it happened more than not that one of us had the 2 best tiles and ended up with more money, but couldn't build anything. And that kind of, it's nice to have a lot of money to buy 1 tile next turn. But usually, or at least to me, that didn't feel like it would compensate enough for the lack of...
That's probably why I like the 2-player version best so far, that where you are always sure the opponent buys 1 from you, or you have at least 1 tile in the end that you can build. You never have these empty rounds. We're going to talk in the experience a bit more about the empty rounds that he had in our gameplay with 3 players, and we never had that with the 2 players, so yeah, it felt a bit more fair. I don't know. I liked it. I liked the 2-player game more than the 3-player.
Yeah, the 2-player version is way more tactical because you know really well what probably is going to happen. Either you're the first player and get to pick whatever tile you want to have, and it still keeps that interesting because when we played this with 2, I was not only considering which tile you would buy, but how much is it worth to me to lose that other tile, because you have to put money behind that. And if you just put a coin behind the other one, and if you're unlucky, the other player is just buying the one for the coin or none at all, and you just lose a bunch of money for maybe some tiles that aren't that great for you, but would have been great for the other player. But regardless, just in general, likes and dislikes. When I said it reminds me of other games, specifically something like Castles of Mad King Ludwig, where you have this. It's not an auction, but you have this buying phase and then the tiling phase. I have to say I like this a little bit more because it feels more streamlined and faster to play.
Yes.
Actually, I'm surprised for a Kennerspiel that this is so easy to grasp and play and actually play through that. Even if it says 60 minutes, it felt really short.
Did it feel to you that we played 60 minutes for...
maybe with explaining the rules, but even then...
Because I felt more like... It was more like, with just the 2 of us, more like 30-35 minutes, and with 3 players, 45 minutes. I didn't feel like we played an hour.
Maybe we didn't just spend enough time looking at the...
We're pretty quick with decisions on what is good for us or not good for us in a certain round. Oh, that's thunder.
Because
yeah, we have welcome to the German summer.
No, welcome to Scotland. Despite it, technically, I think it is summer, is it?
21st is summer solstice.
It is almost summer, and still it has been raining and thunderstorming all the time around here for most of the past 2 or 3 weeks. So, but going back to the game, I would agree that I like the whimsical art style on the thing. However, I think the theme is, at least to me, felt pretty inconsequential. I understand that you like the theme.
Why did it feel inconsequential?
Because I don't feel that the tiles have, or the mechanics have anything or much to do with what is on the tiles. And this could have very well been something in space with some rocks like War for the Galaxy.
Yeah. But I like that they did not go down the easy route, but grounded it a bit more in like real life. I mean,
what I mean, there is theme there, but only in artwork, and I wouldn't go so far to say that the game itself is very tied to the theme. It could have been any other game. This could have been Castles with Mad King Ludwig, kind of build a castle thing as well.
Yeah, but I liked that they didn't go with the obvious choices in current life.
I understand that you like the theme more than other things.
Yeah, I mean, you build your own island is awesome. I mean, no matter what island, but I mean, northern islands are pretty rough. They're not smooth like the Caribbean islands with the nice beaches. They have a lot of rocky area and tiny coves and stuff like that. So with having a lot of different territory, things like mountains and meadows and sea on the tiles, it would fit a northern island way more than it would, for example, let's build I don't know, Grand Cayman Island. It just, come on, no, guys, it doesn't work. So it just works with a northern theme.
Wanted to point out that since I'm not that heavy or that big a friend of the theme, I like it, but it's not.
You like to drink it, but you don't like to play. Whiskey in a jar. Yeah. No, I get where you're coming from. I just,
I do very much like those alternating victory point conditions that give you a little bit to plan, but make each game a little bit different. That, at least for the times we played it, really kept it fresh and made it different, where you sometimes want to hoard money because you would get the points, but then you will only hoard it for like 3 rounds, because in the other rounds that doesn't matter that much. The thing I was surprised with is, at least to me, I didn't have the feel that you had a lot of options of what you wanted to do. At least it felt like there's always an optimal choice each turn. And what I mean with that is, it's not as in other games where you can focus on other things to generate victory points. Here, through that thing that you have alternating victory point conditions, you wouldn't choose one of those. You always try to get the ones that are active this turn and get the most out of that. So that's what I found a little bit, well, I don't want to say boring, but I like games usually a little bit more that give you different paths to beat the other players. And if you see someone rushing ahead with a certain strategy, you could at least try something different and go for some other thing. Here, it almost feels like if someone is really lucky and gets first pick or has enough money to get some tiles that combine as many of those victory conditions there, that is a really strong start for them. And that is usually also not only a strong start, but that keeps them ahead because those tiles don't go away, and they will get victory points on later turns as well for that. So let's say you have something like this, cows on a road. You get 2 victory points for cows on a road that are connected to your main castle. Those will be there in the next 2 turns as well. So as soon as you get some of these out, you will get victory points for that. Now, I understand that the game is about other players denying you that possibility, but sometimes it is just that someone either gets first pick or has just plain more money, and you can't really prevent them from doing that. Specifically, the money issue, and that ties into a little bit of gameplay experience when what, as you said, if you don't get a tile, and it felt to me that is more punishing than getting a bad tile. At least from the ones that are in front of you. If you're and with that I mean if you're tiles behind. So if you get just 1 tile, or at worst no tile per round in a game that has more than 2 players, you are probably at a disadvantage. Yes, you get
and not a slight one, like a real disadvantage.
You get money for the tiles you sell, but keep in mind the amount of money is also dependent on how much money you had in the first place to put on those tiles. Now you could say, well, that's a balancing act, and you have to make sure that you keep money around all the time to, adjust prices properly. But since there's more and more money entering the game each round, because you just get more money for the stuff that's on the board, and you get more money for other players who are ahead, so that I think was meant to compensate for that. But it usually ends up with you have a bunch of money that are at the end of the game not worth as many victory points as you would have gotten by placing tiles. And if you then spend that money to buy any tile just to get a tile, but you end up with
something that doesn't benefit you,
pretty shitty one, then it is almost better to keep the money and just don't build. But then again,
exactly.
That was one of the points where it's like, well,
this is weird.
I don't even know what to do here, because I have, in theory, I have enough money, but I'm not the starting player, so all the good tiles are gone when it's my turn. And that happened in more than 1 turn, which...
we're going to talk a bit more about that in the gameplay.
So I would say I like this game, and since it's so fast, I don't... Well, fast in quotation marks. If the game says 60 minutes, that wouldn't be fast. But for us, playing...
play it faster with at least just the 2 of us, and probably also
it's just
more
beyond the mark of what we could call a casual dinner game in terms of time investment. But it's very quick to set up. And once you have the flow down, it is actually pretty quick to play. And as we said, with the 2-player version, this is pretty nice because you can take a closer look at what the other has, and then try to get the best choice for you at that point. But every player or both players get to do that. With more players, I could see that this is less of an issue if you're playing with 4 or with 5 players, just because there are more tiles available to you to pick. However, again, if you're not the starting player, that also means that the 4 best tiles will be gone before it is your turn. And then again, the question is, is it really better?
It might just be that you draw 8 awesome tiles for a gun, and you're still getting an awesome tile. You don't necessarily get the crap with more than 3 players, and that's where I'm not sure if the 4 and 5 player is as, excuse my words, shitty as the 3-player game. I didn't like the 3-player game that much.
I wouldn't go so far to play and say, well, maybe bad choices were made and some things could have been optimized. But I think that kind of everybody at the table wasn't amazed by the 3-player game, which is...
No, I really, really like the 2-player, but the 3-player... The 3-player is always so crucial with so many games, because there you can easily team up, or especially when it comes to denying another player something, and then he or she has empty rounds again and again and again. And I wonder if it is the same or totally different with 4 or 5 players. And I wish it's more like the 2-player games when you play with 4 or 5.
If I would hazard a guess, and again, keep in mind, non-game designer talking here, what I think was missing a little bit is the option or a stronger way to diversify your way to generate victory points from other players. Yes, you have these tiles that give you victory points, but in comparison to the main tiles, this is really thin and might tip the scale if you're head to head with another player directly, but not necessarily if someone is ahead with the majority of victory points. Those tiles here won't get you back up same full for the money. The other thing would be maybe something that the victory tiles are only scored once. So there's some of those here, like this one, where the player who has the most money gets 5 points and the next gets 2 points. So that these kinds of tiles would allow you to, okay, I'm trying to get more money than the others to consistently get this victory thing here, but the others are not also getting that. With the other tiles, like this one, if everybody has the same amount of tiles, everybody gets the same amount of victory points. So it's kind of, you could have almost ignored this. And that happened surprisingly often, that we had victory tiles that ended up being equal for everybody there, because obviously everybody tries to get the score or the points there. That not doing much. Maybe it was intended that really everybody has to go real hard for those other tiles to keep that equilibrium where these tiles here then tip the scale. But it didn't feel like that when we played this.
No. So let's write and talk a bit more about the experiences and stuff that we had in depth. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I'm more positive about this game than you are.
And let me start qualifying that. One of the points is, I'm not the really biggest fan of tile-laying games. I enjoy them from time to time, and they're okay, but I never went super crazy about Carcassonne. I like that you're building a castle in Castles of Mad King Ludwig, but again, the tile thing, it's all right. I wouldn't want to go out of my way to play this.
No, you would play this with me if I asked you, but you wouldn't.
And I like the
suggest.
I like that buying selling part of this game actually more. Same with the alternating victory point conditions that spice up things a little bit.
I like that
with the caveats just mentioned. But the kind of the tiling thing is okay. That happens. I could say it's almost like a little bit more because the tiling part doesn't or is just a small part of this game. I also very much like that it is such a fast, streamlined game for the many different things that it has in there, and specifically for the many things it has in there from other games that tend to take longer to play than this does. However, as I said, it's not as high on my list as other games might have been, so I'm more middle of the road there. So it's not bad, but it's
it's. I wonder. We should try this with your parents when they come over next week for a game night. I wonder if because then I could know that the 4 or 5 player game would not be as shitty as the 3-player game, and the minus point for me was that the 3-player game was not great. We didn't like it a lot, but I really liked this game for the 2-player version. This would be Sometimes, I like tile laying games. So of the Carcassonne games, I like the Castle most because it has a frame around it and it's just 2 players that could play this game. And it might be that instead of asking you to play Carcassonne Castle for a night, I would ask you to play Isle of Skye with me.
And I would prefer playing this over Carcassonne, the Castle. Although the Castle is the one Carcassonne game I actually do like because of its deterministic nature. What's in there, but since this does some other things in addition to
what Carcassonne the Castle does, yes. So it fills that niche of desire for playing 2-player game with tile laying with me that, for example, Castle Ludwig doesn't. I like Castle Ludwig with more players way more than I do with.
Yeah, because it's also getting more interesting with
exactly.
With the build master.
Just saying this has a very special place in my heart. I really like it. I would have loved it if the 3-player would have been fine. And now let's hop into the last section, funny stories and experiences. This is the last time you will ever hear me trying to make a Sean Connery impression.
I'm terribly sorry.
I told you. I said it last week. Be aware, it's gonna happen. And now I'm done. I will never do it again.
What would they say? Something like, "You're such a hack." That would be appropriate insult from Scottish people to bad Scottish impression.
No, they do have. I'm trying to remember now. Going through.
But should have watched that epic rap battles video with the Sean Connery impression.
Yeah. Anyway, funny stories, experiences. Now, we played it with 2 players first. Well, just the 2 of us trying the new game and really, really liking it. And I liked that this game was... We played it right after Karuba the same night, I have to say. So it was like, oh, now there's maybe a challenge there. Now there's a tactic. Okay, how can I do that? Stuff like that. And just the security that you would always have 1 tile to put down around was pretty great. And you could manipulate the game a bit more by which tile to discard. And sometimes I discarded the one that was not beneficial to the both of us. And sometimes I discarded the one that was most beneficial for the 2 of us, just to make sure that you are not getting the tile and the camera is almost dead with a battery. We quickly have to change it. And there we are again. Magic of editing. So yeah, we were at the 2-player game. So I really liked the 2-player game, the trying to find out how much money, or the money you could keep it in your hand. So it's not. It's
supposed to be secret, unless you're forced to show it, because something like this.
Yeah. So trying to remember, okay, how much did he get? Okay, how does he hold his hand? How much is in there? And then you did draw your 3 tiles and had the screen up again, and were placing the money there, and it's like, what does the hand look like afterwards? How much did he put down? How much do I have to hold back to be able to buy a tile? I really like that with the 2-player game a lot. That was a lot of fun. And there, the bounce back mechanism with the how much money you get for the person that is in front of you, that actually worked. Whereas I feel it didn't work in the 3-player game. It bounced me back to the point that we were 1 point apart in the end when we had the final score at the game for just the 2 of us.
I would say it's a little bit difficult to say, because we would have to play this way more to have, I guess,
we can only speak to the experiences that we had.
But I think it's easier in a 2-player game to concentrate on what the others are doing there, which comes naturally. I was hoping going into the 3-player game that there's more choice for you, but that was kind of almost
reversed.
Yeah, the opposite, because yes, there's more choice, but there's more people, taking away the stuff that you actually want.
Yeah, it was so bad. You had, if I remember correctly, 3 rounds in a row that were empty rounds for you.
Yeah, 2 or 3 where I was getting no or just one tile. And I think that the major issue there is literally because everybody kind of desires the same tile. Maybe more or less, but since you don't have a really good way to go for a different tile, or could say, let's go a little bit back to Castles of Mad King Ludwig, where you have different victory conditions there as well. They give points. You can try to chase them all, but probably won't make all 4, but would go for 3 out of 4 or something like that. But the major difference there is that everybody also has their secret cards and try to chase other things, and their castle setup is way more important for what tile they want to pick next. Here it is more of a I'm going to pick the tile that kind of fulfills whatever victory condition is there. That sounds similar, but since everybody is trying to do the same, and you just have those 3 different territories in castles, you have, I think, 5 or 6 different types of rooms.
8.
There's more variety in
different rooms
in there, where if someone really wants to go and try to build certain types of rooms, you would just go for that, or you can predict more consistently what the other one is having. Here, again, it felt like everybody was looking at the same tiles and wanted to pick up the same tiles.
Yeah, and it felt like if you had bad luck with drawing the tiles, you could really have, them bought away round by round by round by round. And this happened, like I said, more than once for you, that I think it was 3 times in a row that you had such great tiles, and Tina and I drew mediocre, I'd say. So we bought, of course, the tiles from you because they were just the awesomest of awesome tiles. And you could buy one of the mediocre ones from you, but... but it was luck based, and
that game ended up with, I think at some point I had 30 or 35 coins, and that ended up with me taxing my tiles just more and more expensive, until the point where either you wouldn't buy them anymore and I got them, but if you place 15 coins behind a tile, that tile has to be worth 3 victory points, which it is usually. But the problem is, if you would have bought that tile in round 1, it would have been
multiple
3 times
scored multiple times. Yes,
that much. So obviously, I started thinking about, maybe I just want to keep the money because money is worth points as well. But it appeared so few, and also you don't get to increase that. You get to keep the money, and the money increases if other people are still buying from you. But that money itself doesn't have an interest rate on it. So yes, it's worth points at the end, but it's not a good way to try to win the game.
And we didn't have a lot of the tiles that said the one with the most money gets extra points. This one here, that wasn't one of our victory conditions.
And just to say to that gives you just the points if you have the most money. It doesn't necessarily say how much money that has to be. So you could have the most money with just 4 coins if you're extremely lucky, and also have that money invested in property. And then expand that. So money here is a means to an end. But the problem is, if the selection available does not get you to the end, then you might be at a disadvantage.
Yeah. And I felt it was way more pronounced in this game than it was with maybe other games that we have, that the disadvantage here was so obvious. And I mean, just by the way that we were having final scores in the end, we were pretty far apart compared to other games of that sort, where we're usually close together. But Tina was, let me see at the score thingamajig. She was up here, so that would be 55 plus points. I had about 45 to 50 points, and you had 35 to 40 points, somewhere in that range. Yeah. So we were pretty far apart. And just the two of us, we had 60 and 61 points. So just 1 point apart, and also more victory points there. So I felt that, the 3-player game was a combination that we had was a combination of, 3 players, 3 strong players, bad luck, and maybe a bit of unbalancing in the game itself. So it's like, that's what I tried to find out in the next game.
I would like to play this a little bit more and see if that ends up being that way. But I would agree that the 3-player game we played didn't make a great first impression for more than 2 players. But I'm pretty sure we will bring this game out more often for 2-player games.
I would even go so far. Would I have played this game with 3 players, or that 3-player game that we had at a convention trying to get to know the game? I would have maybe not been keen on buying this game. Would I have played the 2-player game? I would have said, honey, we gotta get this game. But
it's the Outlander game.
No, it's not. It's the Scottish game. Outlander is different. It also plays in other areas of the world in later books. Teaser. But so it's, we should get it on the table next time your parents come around. So next week we should try to play it with 5 players and see if it's totally different or if it's what we expect to come up.
So the bonus segment here is, since this is the last Kennerspiel that we discuss, do we have opinions on
Oh, I have strong opinions.
Okay.
Very strong opinions.
Do you want to start with your strong opinions?
This year I'm having the most struggle with, for one, trying to predict what the jury will pick as the Kennerspiel, and I really have struggles too for what I would pick as the Kennerspiel, because there's there's 2 very, very, very strong contestants in there. Sorry guys, I have to discard Skye from being one of the.
Yeah,
I mean, I know, I get why it's in the category or in the nominations, but it has no. I
know that this comes up quite often, but I'm surprised that this is in the Kennerspiel. This would have worked in Spiel des Jahres.
Would they have not had Karuba? I guessed that they would have Isle of Skye in the Spiel des Jahres, but they have Karuba, so they pushed it into the Kennerspiel. And there's some elements in there, especially for the 2-player game, that it makes it fit for the Kennerspiel, I'd say.
I think I would have been. I think Karuba could have also gone for the Kinderspiel. It is.
I know.
It is rather. Simple.
Yes, but again, we come from a different angle. Non-players are maybe seeing
what I
differently.
What I would give to Isle of Skye is, it is from those games the ones that is probably easiest to explain, pick up, and get people to the table playing. Yes. But that is my understanding of what the Spiel des Jahres is supposed to be, and the Kennerspiel should be the one that is a little bit more involved. So, I mean, similar to that, I thought about Broom Service last time, that was also, I think, Kennerspiel, but was simple enough to where we said, well, it could
also be.
This is even
it's even more
easier, I would say, to grasp
regard.
than Broom Service on that. So I can see why it's there. And if it gets picked by the jury, I can only imagine that they really wanted to pick something that was very easy to get people playing at a table and had maybe a little bit more going on. Although I have to say, I'm pretty sure that it's probably going to be Pandemic Legacy as the jury's choice. Reason for that being that Pandemic Legacy is the game that has the meatier gameplay to it, and more the light side of the story. Me personally, it'll be Time Stories for me. I'm just amazed by that game and all the expansions that come out. I like that. So far, everything felt really fresh from an artistic point of view, from a gameplay mechanic point of view. I'm really looking forward to each expansion and curious what they do. And even like we weren't super thrilled about the last one in the Under the Mask, which happens in Egypt, and it was, I don't want to say boring, but it was one of those games where, but it's still better than a lot of other games we have. So that's really good. So that even if the worst so far is still better than most of the others. Also, I was, in regards to Pandemic Legacy, while I appreciate the more refined gameplay, I wasn't so hot after playing this for like 12 to 16 times. So I think we played 16 times.
Yeah.
Spoilers, whatever.
No, it's in the video.
So after that, I think I mentioned that it gets a little bit boring. Yes, Pandemic Legacy changes over the game, but those changes are not enough to keep me interested. And it's like, okay, we played 16 times Pandemic back to back. Pandemic is a good game, but it's not the game I would want to play 16 times in a row. And with that, there is some story elements and theme in Pandemic Legacy that was too thin for me and too predictable. Actually, that is the one point I wasn't so happy about with Pandemic Legacy, that it kind of was clear from the beginning what this is going to be about, and there wasn't surprising very much at all, in contrast to Time Stories. Yes. So I would assume that Pandemic Legacy would get the jury's choice, because that feels like a Kennerspiel, the puzzly nature, the group thinking stuff. Time Stories has that as well, but the gameplay is obviously very thin because it's just a means to transport story in each of the expansions, and the gameplay gets twisted to do that. It does that really well, I think. But I could play Time Stories without the dice. That would still be good.
No, you have to have the dice, because that's...
What I mean with that is I would be good if this would be a full-blown choose your own adventure type of thing, where you just make the decisions, and randomization is even less than it. I enjoy the chucking the dice and then, we made this, and doing that. But it's actually the choices that you make and the knowledge of the adventure that allows you to solve the thing. So the dice rolling more or less gives a little bit moment-to-moment excitement.
Or frustration.
Yeah. But it is certainly, I think, not the major defining characteristic of that. So, yeah, Time Stories for me, I'd say Pandemic Legacy for the jury.
I would agree with Pandemic for the jury, though the concept of having a game changed because of expansions and not because of stickers that you cannot take back is a novelty pretty much, and might be the one thing that the jury thinks, okay, this is this is like a legacy game, but you don't destroy cards or things, but you get a new expansions and it plays differently, and you can always go back to the other one, to a previous one. That this kind of this part of Time Stories might be a beneficial factor, but
it's not that novel of a concept. I think that
no, but it is executed so goddamn well.
It is different.
That is
it is different from what you would expect as an expansion in regards to this adds more stuff, and in regards to this actually replaces stuff. I mean when we first played Time Stories and I opened the box, one of the first impressions I got from the game, also looking at the what's in an expansion box, is thinking like, this is almost like well, I'm old, so I may say this. This is like a VCR with tapes, and you just put the tape in, and then you're playing that story, and then you put the other tape in, and then and the base game is just the vehicle to explain those. Yeah,
that's just the video recorder. So yeah, I think that is the one thing that could make, or that sets apart the experience that we had with Time Stories from Pandemic, and maybe the jury had as well. And then that's the one thing that stands out a lot. However, I could very much also see that with your explanation, your thoughts, that Pandemic will be the jury's choice. For me, I cannot choose which one to take, because they do different things. But the way it satisfies once you have finished a campaign or a year in Pandemic feels very, very much the same for me. No. Like once we've had finished the game, or once we had finished one of the expansions for Time Stories, I had the same amount of satisfaction. I liked some expansions with Time Stories more than others. I liked some months more with Pandemic than others. It satisfies in pretty much the same way with me. So I cannot decide between the two of them for me personally. I would. I see Isle of Skye as the odd one out in this three nominees.
It also is because it's the only non-co-op game.
That too. And it's not a campaign game as the others are. It's more like the traditional board game. I hate to say that, because what is a traditional board game?
Well, it's but it certainly could, more I think mechanical in less story.
Yes, but for me, it's the odd one out because of what you just said, like not a campaign, or what we just said, not the campaign game, not a cooperative game, stuff like that. But it's also the odd one out because of the three of them, I would have been very happy to see this game in the Spiel des Jahres and not the Kennerspiel. And I guess, like I said, if Kuruba wouldn't be up this year, I think Isle of Skye would have had the place in the Spiel des Jahres.
Actually, was it here?
What are you looking for?
A game. I think Automania came out last year, because that would have been, I think, at least for me, a better fit for the Kennerspiel.
Yes.
But,
I'm with you,
because it's still light but still very Euro mechanics based thing, but easy enough. And actually, the theme does help introduce it to people who haven't done this yet. So I'm not sure if it actually is was up for consideration, but I would have seen Automania closer to
more than Isle of Skye. Or I would have seen this in the Spiel des Jahres.
And to be fair, I'm at least I guess you two, we're just looking at this from a content perspective. It's also super unfair to compare Time Stories with expansions to Pandemic Legacy without. If you would just go for a value per euro or dollar spent, then Pandemic Legacy is pretty much winning single-handedly because Time Stories is just a very short in comparison experience. But for me, I would still say that Time Stories, at least for me, was the higher quality experience than in terms of story and having fun at the table with everybody and trying to figure out those puzzles. And the feeling of empowerment was stronger with Time Stories for me than it was for Pandemic. Although Pandemic also had moments where it's like, yeah, wow, we're really clever that we managed to do that. But that was sometimes hit or miss depending on the on how the game went. We had some games where it's like, yeah, well, we didn't even have a fighting chance because we almost lost after a couple of turns because we had really, really unfortunate card draws. And you can try to optimize, but yeah, with Time Stories, it is more like a battle of your own wits against the game.
Yeah, how well can you remember? And how well can you listen to your wife on what location to go next to?
And
stuff like that.
And sometimes a sign of getting older is that you're just happy to remember anything.
Yeah. What's your name? Oh, okay. So
I'm sorry.
I think we're at the perfect time to wrap up this video. Nicely done. Come back on Wednesday for the new episode of Draw for Initiative. Guys, it's another of the podcast episode. We're going to finish them soon. They end on in the last week of June. In July, we're back with paintings. So check out what episode is coming up. I cannot remember what topic
I was about to ask, but then
I think it was if we could have another medium to work with, what would we work with? I think that episode is coming up.
Still.
It's the second to last, I guess. I don't know. You will find it on Wednesday, 9 a.m. CET. Next week on the couch, we will have another game, and we have no clue what to have. So we will choose something throughout the week. Yeah.
We still have a couple of games in the back that we haven't
played yet or played enough yet to have it on the couch. Yes, very much so. So come back next Sunday, 2 p.m. as well to see the both of us. And for the rest of the days of the weeks, I'm on my own doing artwork. So if you want to find out what I did, check in daily. There's lots of artwork that I do. Some is goofy, some is not. Take good care, everybody. Do all the good YouTube stuff. Like, share, subscribe, as per usual.
Goodbye.
And now, goodbye, everybody. Have fun and have a great weekend. Bye, 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 bye.